Hello everybody. Welcome back to the channel where we talk about stuff. So here we are yet again with a bit of different information this time. I have been continuously giving news and information about how there's not a lot of Bitcoin left. I've seen people in the comments, I've seen people over the years who are either skeptical or can't count, whatever the actual factor might be. There are only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin. We know this for a fact. It is in the code. We know that currently, at the time of me making this video, there are over 8 billion people on the planet. Give me a bit of a rundown. You might remember a couple of 2 months ago at this point, we had news that apparently, I believe it was over 85% of all Bitcoin was in the hands of people who had over 100 Bitcoin in a wallet. Whales, large accounts, if you will. We then had news that 93% of all Bitcoin in existence that has been created, 93% was in the hands of people who had over an entire Bitcoin. And once again, that's no longer counting the people who have 0.99 and all the other numbers that kind of trickle down a lot lower. So there's a really interesting time frame, which I've also mentioned before. I'm giving you all this rundown before we get the big news. The idea is that as Bitcoin gets mined, got it, every 4 years, the halving takes place and the reward gets cut in half, thus the halving. The issue is that people tend to underestimate exactly how strong the halving is. You go from 12 Bitcoin to 6 Bitcoin to 3 Bitcoin to 1.75 Bitcoin it turns out to, and then to like less than an entire Bitcoin. And it continues going on that way. A lot of people sometimes, and I understand, life is stressful and crazy. So it's not the norm to think 100 years in the future. I get it. A lot of people are figuring out what they're going to do today, what the rest of the week might look like, or what they have to do tomorrow. The idea of stretching out, going even to like the end of the decade, is a bit intense for a lot of people because once again, we're trying to figure out life right now. In the Bitcoin world, this extrapolation, this pulling of time to go as far as you possibly can is one of the most important things that actually exist within the Bitcoin space. And this is why you typically hear or have heard a lot of like futuristic predictions from people who are like Bitcoin maximalists and people who like really have conviction for Bitcoin. You'll often hear them say, well, in the year 2032, well, by the end of next decade and all these other really weird things, it's because this halving that we have coming up is meant to be like the beginning of the like rocket, if you will. I can't think of another word for it kind of right now. It's meant to be the actual flippening, if you will, for Bitcoin and gold, not price-wise, but the mentality of people in seeing that Bitcoin is mathematically rarer than gold as we continue to mine more gold out of the earth all the time. Cool, amazing, got it. The issue is that if Bitcoin becomes that rare from 2024, what happens in 2028? It gets even rarer and it becomes rarer than other assets. And then by the time, you've heard it before, by the time we get to 2032, a lot of people have the idea or the mindset that we could see over $1 million Bitcoin. It has nothing to do with them being like, yeah, I like the word Bitcoin. It has to do with the math. It will be rarer than every other asset that we have on the planet. And the amount that we had in 2024 that was being created every single time a block was produced got cut in half. In 2028, it got cut in half once again. By the time we get to 2032, that also gets cut in half. And then you have 2036, where it gets cut in half again. And then you have the year 2040, where it gets cut in half once again. At this point, we barely have, in the year 2032, 36, and 2040, we barely have any Bitcoin that's actually being created anymore. Like, it's just fragments of fragments of fragments. And I chose 2040 as the year because I want to give you another number. 2140. 2140 is mathematically, you know how like we can like look at the block creation and the movement of the chain and say, hey, on this date at this time, this is when the halving is going to be. Like there's always like a month, and you're like, how do people know that? Because they're basically not manually counting blocks, but you understand. They can see what the events will be in the future. The year 2040 is also meant to be quite significant in Bitcoin, in that it is expected that we will have proper worldwide adoption for this new asset. If any of you huffed and puffed or looked away, I'm not sure what to tell you. If you haven't gotten the fact that all the world banks and all the countries and BlackRock and Fidelity are in the space, I'm not sure how to tell you that the next 16 years are going to go, but it's quite obvious to a lot of other people. The last Bitcoin is expected to be mined as the halving, so there's less and less constantly coming out. It's apparently going to take until the year 2140 for the last fragments of Bitcoin to actually be mined. Keep that year in your head, 2140. The craziest news is, and I had to give you all of that so you really understood, because if I tell you, go, oh, okay, oh, right, sure. At the time of me making this video, 93% of all Bitcoin has already been created. Yes, because at the very beginning, the first people who were mining, Satoshi Nakamoto, they were getting, I believe, 50 Bitcoin per block. That went down to 25, went down to 12.5, went down to 6, etc., till eventually it goes to like Satoshis of Satoshis of Satoshis of Satoshis in the future. Bitcoin has been around for just roughly around 14 years. 4 years, and already 93% of it has been created. Remember those numbers that we had earlier in the video? Where 93% of all Bitcoin is now owned by people who have more than one coin, and these people continue to accumulate more and more every single day. We just had news about MicroStrategy, for those of you who missed it. I think they just bought another $600 million worth of Bitcoin in November. I think that's exactly what the news was, 600 million in November. Just imagine how much more they and other companies and other people are also going to be accumulating. I recently had a poll on Twitter where I was asking people not like how much Bitcoin is enough, but like how much do you need to have to kind of feel content? And the general number was anywhere from the 0.28 to an entire coin, with many people being like, no, I need more than 10 coins. So a lot of the people who are watching this with you right now, hello, are also accumulating massive amounts of Bitcoin. By the time we get to the year 2032, we will probably already be at like 97, 98% of all Bitcoin that will ever be created to be mined, which means that the last 2% of Bitcoin will take over 100 years to make. If we've seen this amount of energy and this fervor and this accumulation in 14 years with that much Bitcoin being created, imagine how much more people will want to accumulate when there's barely any being created at all. We have entered a very specific time in history. A lot of the stuff that I was told or read about years ago from a lot of the earlier Bitcoin people within the space, not the people pushing out price predictions, but the people talking about what the future was going to be, how bad inflation was going to be, the levels of Bitcoin adoption were already a lot further than they already predicted. We are rapidly entering or in a time, a space where the wealthy have kind of figured out that this is going to be the new monetary system, and they're buying up and have been buying up as much as they possibly can. I'm trying not to like go blah, 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 like go completely insane in the video, but understand the numbers. If they're already holding the vast majority of Bitcoin and 93% has already been created, by the time the next two halvings take place, we will be near the last 2% of Bitcoin, and we'll have to wait 108 years for all of it to be created. Yes, I will say this and then we will move on. I've noticed over the years a lot of people, regardless of the news and the logic and the information that's out there of adoption of banks, institutions, companies, individuals buying up all of this new asset class. We've heard from the head of Fidelity, of NASDAQ, New York Stock Exchange, BlackRock, you name it. They've all said this is the new asset class. And we now know that it is going to last for at least the next 100 plus years. I would say that despite all that information, there are still a lot of people who kind of question if they're too late for Bitcoin, or if what the time frame is for a lot of this. I would say it is probably time for a lot of you to reevaluate your current investment portfolio and see if it's time for you to potentially allocate extra money that you have left over after having paid all of your bills and your debt each month, potentially going into Bitcoin. That is to say, look at your portfolio to see if it's right for you. I will never tell you what to buy. I will simply bring you the news. But understand that the most recent predictions from a lot of people have said or have gotten to the point where they believe we are going to be over $500,000 to $1 million per Bitcoin by 2032. Keeping in mind that there will still then be another 108 years of Bitcoin being around at least. The rich prepare for generations in advance. Generations, and this is what they're currently doing, and this is what they do all the time. Understand the significance of these people getting into the market and buying as much as they can of this new asset class. Yes, when I saw this news, I was like, I didn't know it was that dramatic. Apparently 19.56 million Bitcoin have already been mined. Yes. Please don't get left behind. I try and choose my words very carefully when making videos, but understand that something incredible is currently taking place. And I want to make sure that all of you received this information and did not simply sit there and then 20 years down the line go, I missed it. Because you are literally 116 years early. I do sincerely hope that you have all enjoyed. I do hope that you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I do hope it is absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and or supporting. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.